Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me come and speak to you. My name's Nathan Marston, and I believe that innovation is really important. And I say that not just because I'm a business consultant and I have kids to feed, but actually we live in a time of business where innovation has probably never been as important as it is now. Let me try and tell you why that's so. I took a look at the number of titles published in English starting in 600 AD. So let's go back a bit. You see Beowulf, and in the middle there you see Caxton's Press, which is a technological revolution that creates a massive uptick in the number of English titles. Now, before I get any heckling, I recognize that this is not Gutenberg, and it's later, but this is English articles, not German articles. Okay, so Caxton is the guy you want to think about. So in this first period of time, about 1,000 years, you see 20 times the number of English titles per year. You exit with about 500 a year. Let's roll the clock forward a little bit. We go through the 1600s, we come through into the 1850s. Conflict actually drives an awful lot of the increase. You see the English Civil War, you see the expansion of publishing through the French Revolution. You exit in 1850 with about 10,000 titles a year. So it's another 20 times. But this time it's only taken 250 years. Guess what? Keep going forward. It keeps accelerating. Tale of Two Cities arrives, the Cold War, the World Wars, and you see an incredible uptick as you head into the modern era. You get into about 2000 with about 150,000 new titles a year in English. That's another 20 times, and this one is only about 50 years. So the question you're asking, no doubt, is what happens from 2000 to 2014? Does it continue to accelerate? It certainly does. You've lived this, but it's interesting to see it in reality. When you see the technological revolution of the internet, you suddenly go from the thousands to the millions. So now we're running at 3 million new titles a year in English. Now, it looks good and it's interesting, but it's not until you put it all together that you see what a really disruptive time we live in. This is the same data. This is the way it looks, and we live at the right-hand edge of that. And I could have picked any number of metrics, and you'll find it starts to look a bit like that. These are unprecedented times to be in business. Innovation is really important. If you don't want to take my word for it, you could take the word of other colleagues around the world. We do a lot of surveys, we get to talk to a lot of executives, and we ask them about innovation. And we said, how important is innovation to you? 84% said innovation was extremely important. Not just a little bit important or one of 50 things, but extremely important. What's more worrying is only 6% are happy with their innovation performance. So arguably, innovation might be the single biggest challenge for business executives globally today. So the question becomes, what can you do about it? Well, here's the thing. We've thought about this for a while, as you'd imagine, and I'm going to try and answer 3 questions for you. One is, what is innovation? How do you define it? What makes it up? The second is, what makes some companies innovative and others not so innovative? And the third question is, what can you as leaders and managers in business do to improve innovation? Okay? The good news is I think we have some good answers to these questions. The bad news is that I have to put it all in about 12 minutes. So this is going to be a taste. And if you get excited, there's lots of other things you can read. So let's get started. What is innovation? We would say there's 3 types of innovation. The first is product or service innovation. This is the easy one. Everyone understands this. Everyone in this room, I bet, has a smartphone of at least one type. A lot of you will have 2, maybe even 3. So that's a great product innovation. It's shiny new things. That's what most people think of when they say innovation. There's actually 2 other types that are equally important. One is process innovation. The ability to deliver what you want to deliver at radically lower cost or in a radically better experience. This one has a little picture of a drone on because I know you have a huge logistics business, and I'm fascinated by the use of drones for same-day delivery. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to get to a point where they'll allow these drones to wander around cities, because there seems to be a lot of problems with that for me. But certainly, if you think about logistics in the round, transatlantic logistics, unmanned aircraft to fly packages around the world 24/7. Many of you, no doubt, follow the driverless car revolution that's going on. Google and Matt Britton can talk about that. If you talk to a pilot, planes have been unmanned effectively for a very long time. They can drive themselves. So it's interesting to see how that's going to affect process. The last one is business model evolution. The classic example here is Dell. Anyone remember why Dell has a business model revolution? It's because they were the first people to sell you a laptop or a PC at the time direct. They were a manufacturer and they sold it to you directly. That was revolutionary. Now you can't imagine it being any other way. But at the time, it was very different. Business model innovation is really about getting your money from a different place or a different source or a different part of the value chain. Let me give you a publishing example. If you go down into China, Nanking, say, and you have a look at a bookshop, you might see something like this. You might go around, you might pick up your books, and you go to the checkout, and you'd pay by weight. Not by title, but by weight. Because for this business model, the most important expense is the paper, not the IP. Now, that is not comfortable if you're a publisher or an author, but believe me, that's a very different business model that you're facing out there. All right? So, 3 types of innovation. What's the inputs then? If that's output, what is the input to innovation? This is called Creativity and Innovation, this conference, which I like, because I don't think they're the same thing. In fact, I would go further and say that creativity is part of innovation, but not the whole part. Delivery is also important. It's one thing to have a good idea. It's another thing to bring it to the point where it makes real money and makes real returns. And actually, each part of this is almost as difficult as the other. So, we know what innovation is. The question is, what makes one company good? What makes one company bad? We've done a whole lot of research on this, and we think it boils down to 8 things, 8 essentials of innovation. It's like a recipe you can make. You can mix them in different ways, but generally speaking, these are the 8 things that really matter if you want to be an innovative company. Let me share with you what they are. The first 4 are about shaping creativity, and number 1 is about aspire, about setting an aspiration for what you want to achieve as a company out of innovation. Critically, you've got to put some numbers on it. It is not enough to say, I'd really like to be more innovative. That doesn't really mean anything. What you have to say is, what is it going to get you? If you do that, and you're prepared to put real time in as leaders, then you'll find you're getting a good job at aspiration. Past aspire is choose. Choose is about making clear bets. The reality is that not even companies with infinite cash machines, by which I mean Google, can let 1,000 flowers really bloom and make it work. If you've heard of spring cleaning, Google's spring clean, that's about trimming their portfolio down to a number of things they can actually do and get hold of. Now, the rest of us, we don't have infinite cash machines, so it becomes even more important. If you don't choose as a company, you're effectively choosing nothing. And that's exactly what you're going to get. Trying to peanut butter your resources everywhere, essentially you may as well just give the cash away or put it in a big bag and burn it. Okay? Choice is really important. I'll be honest with you, it's also one of the most difficult essentials. Nobody likes to make a choice. Who wants to be the executive that turned down the Beatles? Everybody remembers who that is, right? No one remembers the person who made the big hit because that becomes everybody's property. It's about managing risk, and there are ways to think about that, but I would encourage you to think about choice as part of your innovation world. Third one is discover. This is where the ideas come from. Here's my provocative statement. There is no shortage of ideas. There might be a shortage of good ideas. What makes a good idea? I'd argue it's insight. It's insight, a privileged way of looking at a customer, at a market, at a technology that allows the new to flourish. If you have a choice about where to put your dollars, invest in insight and let the ideas come. If you invest in getting more ideas, all you've done is made choice harder. What you want is insights. The last one is evolve. Evolve is about the business model. There's a great challenge for incumbents right now. It's very easy to get disrupted by a startup in a garage. You're going to see some of the people who've created startups in a garage that are worth millions, hundreds of millions. This is, again, not a comfortable sensation. You have a formula that works. Why would you want to change it? The reality is if you don't explore business models, you will go extinct. And there are some good stories about people slowly going extinct over 20 years or going extinct really quite quickly over 2 years. The great news is, as a big company, you have scale, you have resources, you have reach. You can go and look at these business models if you're proactive, if you're prepared to face the truth that you may have to change your own. So this is the left-hand side. It's really about what you do. The right-hand side is about how you do it. There are 4 things here, too. One is about accelerate. Now, there's a wonderful phrase around making horses, not camels, because a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And if you were to go and say, design me a process that would kill and dilute and water down ideas as well as it could, you would end up with pretty much most corporate innovation processes. Okay, they could not be any better at killing and weakening innovation. The truth is, it doesn't have to be like that. You can do it a different way. But it requires some thought, and it requires some risk-taking, it requires some ownership, but it can be done. But if you ignore it, you're going to end up with a bunch of camels. The second one is scale. Some ideas are born global. They're just meant to be big, either because they have huge network effects like Facebook. Facebook is a global idea. Or because first mover advantage is everything. So if you don't get into the geography first, it's done, right? So you may as well make it global. If you have an idea that is global, you need to invest in it like it was global. If you short it, you're just wasting your money. It won't work in a niche. That said, and it's important, there are some ideas that are best in niches. They don't scale. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There are some incredibly profitable niches out there. If you take software as a service for enterprise right now, that is one of the hottest spaces in technology, and there are enormous amounts of money made in these niches. So if you're in a niche, fine, exploit it. If you are global, however, you better put the money down to make it work. Last couple. One is extend, open innovation. So being the partner of choice. Almost every serious company now uses a form of open or collaborative innovation. The last holdouts around pharma companies, gave up years ago. They now work extensively with small companies. And the reason is you can't hope to be as good on your own as everybody else is put together. It's just, the numbers don't work. So you have to find a way to collaborate. You have to find a way to partner if you want to be successful. Interestingly, people will accept that and usually say that's OK. But then you ask them, how much effort do you put into defining your network? Answer, not much. How much effort do you put into pruning it and growing it? Answer, even less. So it's surprising. This is a hugely important area for many companies, but it's a difficult one to get hold of, and people typically underinvest in it. What I would advise you to think about is, can you make yourself the partner of choice? Can you make it so that people want to come and work with you? Because it's an awful lot easier to pick from a position of strength than it is to beg people to work with you. The last one is the one that people are normally most excited about, which is mobilize. How do you energize and organize your organization to get behind innovation? Now, I would love, believe me, I would love to be able to stand here and tell you that you can take a piece of paper, draw some boxes and lines, and I guarantee you that'll give you a great innovative organization. And believe me, we looked really, really hard for that answer. It does not exist. Okay? There is no significant correlation between a particular organization design and a great innovative organization. Let's be clear, though. It is possible to design a really stupid organization, okay, that makes things really hard. So I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, you can't find a silver bullet. So long as it's not completely insane what you're doing, that's not the problem. What can you do, then, to mobilize and energize an organization? Let me give you a couple of things. One is that you can link your innovation choices to your strategy. You'll often find that strategy lives in a tremendously important place in the organization, and innovation lives in this lovely vacuum, completely separate from strategy. Break down that. Get the innovation involved in your strategic decisions. That helps enormously. The second is a theme you mentioned earlier in the introduction, which is around collaboration. Chances are you don't know as a company what you know. How can you bring that together? And there are lots of different ways you can do it, and some work for different companies, but investing to bring ideas and knowledge, frankly, together, and people together, is one of the most powerful ways to raise your innovation as a whole. And the last thing is about incentives. Incentives do matter, particularly if you're a business unit leader. If you are running a big P&L for a business, you are usually not that keen to pilot stuff that is only going to make 2 or 3% of difference in the next year. That is not what's on your mind. But the truth is, if you don't find ways to incentivize people to do that, it will never be the next big thing. So some targeted incentives for particular people can be really, really important. So here we have the 8 essentials. The question you might ask, and it's a legitimate question, is, yeah, it's interesting, and it might be true, but does it really matter? Well, I'm giving you a taste, so there's a lot of detail of practices, what you do as managers behind and leaders behind each one, but let me try and show you that it really does matter if you get these right. We spent a long time trying to measure how innovative companies are, and believe me, that is a world of pain, which will require another speech, but bear with me. So we did that, and we actually worked out how many of the essentials they had going for them. So in a given company, how many essentials are really working? Are you a top quartile innovator, or are you a bottom quartile innovator? Then we plotted the numbers. Here's what we find. If you have no essential working for you, it's just not working well. Okay, you got nothing going for you in this model. Chances are you're going to be a bottom quartile innovator. Actually, you're more likely than not to be in the bottom quartile. Interestingly, you can still be in the top quartile, which is slightly irritating to me after 5 years of research, but actually it shows that serendipity, luck, kind of matters, right? You can be lucky, and if you are lucky, tremendous. Napoleon would like you as a general, and everybody's happy, right? It's not a business strategy, I would argue. Good news, get one right, just one right. Your chance of being in the top doubles, your chance of being in the bottom halves. And it gets better the more you get. By the time you get to 4 or 5, you're looking pretty good. What's interesting is if you can get 7 or 8 running, you end up looking like this. 63% are in the top quartile, and you're virtually certain not to be in the bottom. So we would say that the 8 essentials really do matter. They make a difference. So, if you believe they matter, the last question I said I'd talk about is what you can do individually. So let me give you 3 things you can think about. The first is take a good, hard look at where you stand right now in innovation. Okay? Not how you talk about it or not what people think of you as a brand, but how good are you at making innovation happen in your company? And by the way, you can measure it against these 8 essentials. You can find out what you're doing and seeing if it makes any sense. The second thing is to decide what it is you want to achieve with innovation. Of 100 clients who come to talk to me about innovation, I'll let you into a secret, about 30% genuinely have an innovation problem. About 30% have a strategy problem, which is we don't know what to do and we like the word innovation, so let's do something. And 30%, frankly, are looking for a Hail Mary pass because they've tried everything else and innovation is a good thing, right? So decide what you want to do in innovation. The thing about that is these essentials have a sort of hierarchy. Some are more important than others. And it turns out that Aspire, setting out what you want to do, spending real time on that, is the single most important essential. If you are good at Aspire as a company, you are significantly more likely to be good at every other essential except one. One of them really doesn't matter. You can be good at aspiration, you can be bad at aspiration. It doesn't affect how good you are at it. And that one is discover, about having the insights. So you can want to be innovative, and you can spend a lot of time on it, but you can't force the ideas to come. But it's a really good place to start. I hope you have a great couple of days. It's been a real honor talking to you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be around, so hopefully I'll catch up with you guys later on. Thanks.